torturously long summer. We've all been ready for this. You at home, us here. It is finally Cam Murray football season.
Oh, man. I can't wait. Like you just said, before we saw the intro video, I was telling him, one more sleep, less than 24 hours until we see our first high school football game, and then a few more days away to West Virginia football. This is what we've been waiting all offseason for. We've been talking about it, from May, June, July, prepping for this, just like all our teams in the local area prepping for their seasons. We're prepping for our season as well. We're prepping for a great season of high school ball and college ball as well.
And it's not just the preparation. It is, of course, as you can at home imagine and know, it feels like another era from 2024 to now. Neil Brown is now gone. WVU has received the on-the-field and coaching staff overhaul, and now we get to find out. We'll start with the Mountaineers today. Now we get to find out what they can do in Week 1 in just a couple days' time. That's what we're here to do today. It's our Week 1 preview for WVU football as they take on Robert Morris this Saturday afternoon, and then we'll bring you our previews of the high school football games coming up this week. Again, we've got 2 coming up on Thursday and the rest of the slate on Friday. Most of our teams playing this weekend. We start, though, with the Mountaineers, Cam. 22-0 is WVU against FCS schools. Is there any reason this should be 22-1, or are we expecting a 23-0?
Well, I hope not. I hope it's not the one. Hope they don't lose. I mean, I think all the fans in the state want to see West Virginia come out here and prove their dominance. Nothing against Robert Morris, 7-5 like you said last year. Zach mentioned it on our last episode, how they're a little bit stronger than the teams in past we've seen in FCS programs.
Right.
But I think if I'm a fan, I want West Virginia to come out and be up at least by 3 or 4 touchdowns at halftime. I don't think that's hyperbole at all. I think what we're seeing from this team and what we're hearing from this team, the confidence level Rich Rod has in the new players, them learning the system, and Zach Alley on defense, I think this should be, I'm not going to say an easy game. There's no easy games in college football by any means, but this should be a big win and big statement for the fans all around the state that this team's back and they're ready to play.
Interesting. All right, I'm not going to buy into the hype as much as Cam does here. I'll tell you right now, I think this game's going to be a lot more difficult than just that. So we're going to get through that a little bit here today, starting with the quarterback position. So Rich Rodriguez in his radio show this week and in his media press conference on Tuesday, he's talked about how he feels comfortable using any of the quarterbacks that he's got on the table. He's not looking for just one. He has specifically not singled out a single quarterback that he's going to use here. And if you look at the depth chart that was released this week, I don't think I've seen a depth chart with 5 starting quarterbacks listed on it. Of course, it's not going to be all 5 who play. I think we all know that. But as you look at the depth chart, it's Nico Marchiol or Jalen Henderson or Max Brown or Scotty Fox or Khalil Wilkins. So, Cam, as we get to this Week 1 game, one of the things that stands out to me that Rich Rodriguez has said this week, he said we could really use a preseason game at WVU. And, of course, that's never happening in college.
Oh, yeah.
But he did say we could really use one because this would be the time for it. And that's sort of what this game feels like to me. This is a preseason game, not necessarily for the intensity level. This is going to be an intense game. Robert Morris, I think, really feels like they can pull off the upset here with this first game back for Rich Rodriguez, this new 79 new players here. But for WVU, this will become their preseason in the sense that they've got a lot to work on offense to start this year off.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they have a lot to work on, a lot of guys to mesh in, but I think the main characters we saw from last season, of course, Jaheim White, he's going to have a great day, I assume. Really comes down to, does the offensive line understand the system? Do they understand what Rich Rod wants them to do? And kind of complementary on the defensive side, does the defense understand where they have to be? Are they running the plays exactly to where Zach Alley wants them to be in that situation? And that's where we're going to kind of be seeing in this Week 1 game. We're not, the score, Atticus may be a little bit less likely to call it a win automatically right now, but I think it's more to see what the players, what they have in front of them. I don't think Rich Rodriguez, he's explained, they had these scrimmages between inter-squad, the guys on the team, but when you get out there and when the Mountaineer, shoots the musket in the air and the band's playing, well, all the bets are off at that point. I mean, it's going to be a time where a lot of players are having their first experience in Milan Puskar Stadium. So even if it's not a big opponent in Week 1, a big opponent like not, Penn State or anything like that, I think there's a chance some players might be a little bit anxious and nervous, which can be understandable. But, Week 1, they should have confidence going into that Week 2 game against Ohio. I see no reason why West Virginia can't show their dominance over an FCS school and, remind people that, Rich Rodriguez is back and this is the team that wants to be the fastest team in all of college football. They want to show what they can do. and I see no reason why they can't do it on Saturday.
I want to get to the specific on the offensive line in a moment, but first of all, the thing that Rich Rodriguez said he's looking for the most from this first game from his team, he mentioned that games will go slower than practices for the WVU squad. Obviously, practices, they can run Rich Rodriguez's intensity all day long, but when it gets to the game, you get those TV timeouts, you get those little breaks all the time. It changes things a bit. So Coach Rodriguez has said he wants to make sure that the guys are paying attention and that the guys are laser focused this week. That's the biggest message for me, he says, not just to the players, but everyone on the sideline or in the program. You know, it's work time. So that, I think, is, of course, the big thing WVU needs to establish here. How hard are they going to work? How hard will these players work in this first week? Can they really step on the gas against Robert Morris, get out to a lead? Can they stick to a lead? What are they going to do when Robert Morris punches back? We're going to find out quick, because the reality is, as we talk about this team, we talk about these things that WVU will try to do. 79 new players, new schemes everywhere. Offense, defense, special teams, new coaches, up and down the list. We know almost nothing about this team. Of course, we know Rich Rodriguez likes to play. We don't know anything else about how this team is going to work together. I'm excited to see it.
Right, and kind of like you said, if the players are, I'm going to use a word that Coach Rodriguez has used during the offseason, loafing around, loaf. If they're showing that they're being a little bit lazy, not as focused as they should be, well, we're seeing a lot of oars on this depth chart, not just in the quarterback's room. We're seeing a lot of oars when it comes to wide receivers in the wide position. We're seeing guys on defense who are getting some of these oars, and these just mean these aren't exactly like, or is this guy going to be great? Is he going to be bad? It's more just like there are guys who can compete for jobs. So if a guy is not doing what Rich Rodriguez believes that he should be doing, or not giving the effort that is deserved in a big college football game like this, or any college football game for that matter, he's not afraid to let a guy know, pull him out, and we know that he's going to hold his team accountable. If Jaheim White, just to use him as an example, if he's not hustling, he misses a blocking assignment, I could see Rich Rodriguez immediately pull him out. I could see him taking that side of accountability and that stand, like, we're going to run these plays my way, and if you're not on the same page, well, there's the bench. I think that's kind of how Rich Rod has presented himself during the offseason. And
that's fair.
From the son of a coach, I mean, my dad is one of his biggest fans. He appreciates that kind of accountability for his players, and I think the players also appreciate that accountability, understanding that they have a role for the success of this team, and it's not just if they can catch a pass or they can hit a block. It's can they buy in, and everyone buy in, not just one player. Can the whole team buy into what they want to do? And if they can, this could be a team that can compete for maybe a bowl win. I'm not going to say for the Big 12 championship. I don't want to even talk about that just yet. We're not even in week 1. But if they can really buy in, we could see this team make some noise. Not too sure how far they can go, because there's a lot of better teams in the Big 12 right now. But it's week 1. We'll see how this team plays. I'm hopeful to see them play well.
Jaden Bray said this week in his media availability after Coach Rodriguez that Coach Rod is locked in. His mindset of outworking everyone is what they're looking to establish here for the WVU players this weekend against Robert Morris. So I want to turn now, Cam, to the best player that we think WVU has, and the best player that we think will probably drive them to the success they need this season. The quarterback position is important, of course, but really Jaheim White, it's going to come down big time to the running back position, and specifically him. He has been such a big part of this team for the past couple of years, last year especially. Keeping him, really big deal for the Mountaineers. So the question becomes, can he stay healthy? Can he do all that he needs to do? Speed guys may not take every snap, obviously. There's a lot that your speed guys need to handle. So he may not be playing every snap out there. You're going to rotate him in and out for rest, of course. But what can he do this year? What are you looking for from him? Game 1 and beyond.
I'm looking for him to be the best running back in the Big 12, and I'm confident in saying that. I think what we saw from Jaheim White last year, and him being a premier guy on this offense, we know how Rich Rod likes to use his running backs. Of course, he did say over the offseason, now that could have just been when the running backs were a little bit not as healthy as they would be for week 1. He's not afraid to let the guy with the hot hand keep going, but Jaheim White should be confident. Well, I mean, fans should be confident that Jaheim White will be that guy. And if Jaheim White's playing well, if this is a guy that's getting 1,000+ yards at the end of the season, well, I could see West Virginia really in the top of those standings. If he's the guy leading them to the charge, I see no reason why West Virginia can't be a 6+ win team.
871 yards last year, gross yards, 845 net for Jaheim White. Without C.J. Donaldson taking half those other snaps, obviously other running backs are going to get snaps this year, but they won't be getting as much as Donaldson did. I think we're all expecting White to have us at home, us here, and you at home to have 1,000+ yards. He had 7 touchdowns last year on the ground. I think we're all expecting 10, 12, maybe
Yes.
more than that. He really has a chance to do something great. The only issue here that stands in the way for him, though, we know how talented he is. We know about his speed. We know about his explosiveness. This offensive line is really the big key and the big worry that I have going into week 1 and beyond. Rich Rodriguez mentioned a few times in his press conference this week, and he's mentioned it a lot throughout the summer, the O-line's inexperience has been a bit of an issue. Now, he singled them out for praise. He said the O-line's done a great job, and when asked what group has taken the most steps this summer, he specifically said the O-line, coming from a place of inexperience to where they are now. But Cam, I don't think inexperience on an offensive line is a great thing. Obviously, no one thinks that. And as we get to this fall season, the amount of times that he's talked about the O-line, the amount of times Coach Rodriguez has brought them up and said there are things to work on here, there are things I need to see from them, that has me very worried for week 1, and especially this lack of experience. Rodriguez said this week, I would probably say the O-line has the least experience. They've had the furthest to go. That's a bit of a worrying sign in a conference where the line is going to dominate everything.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, when he talks about the offensive line in that sort of way where they did have a lot to go, a long way to go when he first got there, and it's just because the difference between his offense, a lot of these guys, of course, are not returning. They're not returning from last year in Neil Brown's offense, but maybe there's some guys that are used to different systems, and Rich Rodriguez is known for a specifically different system that maybe offensive linemen are having a tough time understanding. But I will say, and everyone knows this obviously, we can talk about Jaheim White and the running backs too. There's no Wyatt Milam. There's no Zach Frazier on this offensive line. And that is the thing we have to really recognize. Is there a guy on the offensive line who the fans and the coaches can feel confident in saying, this guy's on our unit? Is it going to be like that? Is it going to be a one guy is our main guy, or are they going to look to have a collective effort, which I guess every coach hopes to have, is that there's 5 guys in your offensive line that can collectively help you do the job, but there's not one guy that I'm looking at right now and before week 1 to say this is a guy that's going to lead them. I think Landon Livingston, great center. I've heard what he said in the press conferences. He seems like a great player. What can he do, and what can this whole offensive line do to really come together and help a quarterback, whoever it may be? We assume it's going to be Nico, but whoever it may be, and also how can they help Jaheim White and the other guys in the running back room? At the end of the day, if they can't move the ball, you're not going to win games. So as simply put as that, I know it sounds simple, but if you can't move the ball, you're not going to win many games. Right.
And of course, we're not expecting the offensive linemen to become the household names here. I imagine you at home may not know who any of the offensive line starters are. And if you look at their depth chart here, there are, let me see, about 23 starts amongst their 5 starting offensive linemen that have been named for this year. And really, of those 23 starts, it is 22 of them coming from 2 people. So, Cam, you look at your left guard, Walter Youngbear with 13, your right tackle, Tykeist Crawford with 9, Landon Livingston has 1 start, that's it. Yeah. So you're working with a lot of inexperience, not just in terms of experience on the field for each player, but in terms of these guys connecting with each other. It's the NIL era, it's the transfer portal era. You're going to be doing this every year, right? Every school's doing this. Everyone's building in new starters except for maybe the top squads. But WVU especially, there's a lot of inexperience here. And there's a quote that Rich Rodriguez said in his press conference this week that really stood out to me as the big key to how this summer has gone so far. So he was asked about the quarterback position. So one of the reporters asked him, were you happy with what you got out of the quarterback competition this fall camp? And Rich Rodriguez said, yeah, I'd probably, we'd use more live plays if we had a veteran group of offense and defense. In other words, if we had the offensive line that's been in the system for a few years, had all the protections down, knew how to handle the blitzes, stuff like that. But, you've got a new offensive line, they're still learning the system, and there's more risk. That is really, to me, the big problem here, Cam, as we get towards week 1 and beyond. Skill players, there are lots of them in college football. I think plenty can show up. We'll see who does that for WVU. My big concern is, though, I don't know if this offensive line has had the time they need to gel. And Rich Rodriguez's blocking scheme is pretty simple. They've mentioned this a lot. A lot of the players have mentioned this. Livingston, the center, mentioned this week. His scheme is simple. They're not asked to do any crazy things. This is not an NFL offensive blocking scheme here. That's a good thing in terms of betting the players in. But I think it can be problematic because, again, scheme or not, you need time to get adjusted to your lineman next to you. You need time to know what you're going to do for each play. And this is going to be a real challenge, I think, for WVU, not just here in week 1, but going forward.
I agree. I think that's obviously something that fans should be concerned about. And it's not to say that this offensive line is terrible, not the worst in the Big 12 by any means.
We don't know.
We don't know, exactly. We don't know what it's going to be week 1, but if we start to watch this game against Robert Morris and There's guys that are just running right into sack the quarterback, or there's guys that we're watching and we hear in the press conference after, oh, well, there was a few missing blocking assignments, there was a few this and that. We know that that's still something they're worrying about. And during the offseason, we heard a lot about how the defense, and this is kind of the same thing with a lot of other teams in terms of football. We hear from our high school coaches as well that the defenses are usually more far ahead than the offenses just because of athleticism. There's a lot less things to worry about. As you're looking on offense, you have to worry about coverages and where guys are if you're a quarterback. But that's one thing I was kind of thinking over the offseason, like, all right, Rich Rod is talking about this offense. They're struggling a little bit, but he's also really talking about the defense, how Zach Allen is getting his guys up to speed quickly. So that's kind of what I chalked it up as. Well, maybe the defense is just so far ahead of the offense, and Zach Allen is doing a great job on that side, and the offensive line is having trouble because the defense is so much more far ahead than them. But we're getting into the week of the game, and if we're still hearing that Rich Rodriguez is kind of talking about the offensive line still needing time to understand the system, well, yeah, that's a little bit different than when he was saying that in April or in June or July. That is a big concern.
The good thing for WVU, the good thing for fans out there is it's week 1 against Robert Morris. This is not Penn State. You're not going to be losing by 30 points again this year in this week opening game. This should be a win. I may be more pessimistic about how this will go. I think Robert Morris will keep this close for the first half, but the reality is it is Robert Morris. This should be a win. I think we all expect a big win here, and I think WVU has the talent to do that, regardless of schemes or protections or time spent together. I think we all feel confident they're going to win. I just think it may be more difficult. But you've got this game, then you've got Ohio. Ohio's a road game. It's a 2-hour bus ride, hour-and-a-half bus ride. It's not that bad. You're going to have the time, the chance to gel together here. Ohio's going to present a challenge. Again, it's not a Power 4 team. You've got 2 weeks here. They're not preseason games, but they're about as good as you could hope for, though you're not at home. You're going to get 2 relatively easier games to get the chance to put things together before the Pitt game, and then all bets are off in the backyard brawl. All bets are off of the rivalry. If you can get through these first 2 weeks, I think I'd feel very good about where you are going forward for this offense. Of course, we have to see, but this is a good chance to start things off right for WVU.
I agree. Me and Zach kind of were talking about this Ohio game. There's been teams in the past that have gone into a game before the game. Call it a trap game, call it whatever you want, call it a rat game. The Ohio game looks to me like it could be a trap for West Virginia. All the emotions, all that people want to focus on is 9-13, the backyard brawl, and I don't blame anyone. Of course, that's the one game that everyone wanted their tickets for. They already have them. They're probably already parked out tailgating or something. That's the game. I just think that West Virginia and I have Rich Rodriguez, the importance of winning week 1, yes, check that off. Check that off when it happens, and then lock into Ohio. Don't just start preparing for Pitt too early is my thing, and I don't see Rich Rodriguez and his staff doing that. But there are cautionary tales of rivalry games coming up. You're playing an opponent that you believe you're better than, and then you lose. You fall flat on your face. You didn't prepare as good enough as you should have because you had that game looking ahead to. So that's one thing that I'm sure the questions will come out after the Robert Morris game heading into that Ohio week. How do you tell your guys that you have to win this week and then you play the next game? It's not, let's worry about Pitt and put Ohio aside because they're not in our division, they're not in our league.
Right.
I don't see Rich Rodriguez disrespecting any team. Of course, it's college football, anything can happen, but that's what I worry about. If I'm a player or if I'm a fan, we got to win both these games. We don't just want to win one and go 1-1 heading into the backyard brawl. Let's win these 2 games. Let's play our best football and then go into that backyard brawl 2-0. And I mean, I'm just going to consistently say that Ohio game does worry me. I don't want to say I don't think they're going to lose per se, but there is a chance they could lose. Obviously, anything can happen. I'd be worried if we're heading into the third quarter of that game and West Virginia is down by 7 or down by 10, or heading into halftime it's a tie score. They have to really show their dominance in both these games and prove this is Rich Rodriguez's team. We're back and we're ready to take down Pitt at 9-13. That's what they
Well, hey, you know what? This is as good as time as any. As we're about to get here to this first game, as we're about to get things going for the start of the season here, we, of course, both think WVU is going to win this week, different degrees, of course. But, Cam, as we get ready for this first game, we don't know much about the team. We're about to find out a lot. This is the discovery week, if you will, for WVU and beyond. What do you expect from WVU this season? What are your predictions? How far do you think WVU is going to go? What are you looking for from the Mountaineers year 1 of the return of Rich Rodriguez?
So I I did have a prediction sheet in the office back there, right? 7-5 record I had, and I don't want to exactly go into all the games, but I'll just say this right now.
Right.
I think West Virginia can win 7 games. The backyard brawl was one of those wins. Okay, that was, I know that for a fact. That was one of those wins. There are times during the season I did feel like West Virginia might go on a 3-game losing streak, or maybe even go on a 3-game winning streak. I just think this is the schedule does give West Virginia some, I don't want to say breaks, but they don't have to go away, they don't have to face as many good teams, away. They can come in and, I guess there are some teams they do have to go away to and try to beat. But in my prediction, 7-5 record, I don't think it's too far to say. I will say this, if they lose to Ohio, scrap that out the window. If they lose it, if they're losing,
that's fair.
If they can't win those games, of course, just scrap it. If somehow they lose to Robert Morris, yep, scrap it. I mean, backyard brawl, that's the whole season right there. If they win that game, I think they can win 7 games. If they lose that game, they're not going to make a bowl, in my opinion. I think it's going to be too much of a confidence deflator if they don't win that game. I know there's a lot riding on it. It's just one game, but there's a lot riding on that rivalry, and if they don't win that game, this could be a 5 or 4 win team.
And I think there are 2 parts to what I think will happen with WVU this season. One, of course, is like what Cam mentioned, that the start of the season is going to tell you a lot about this Mountaineer squad. This Mountaineer team is going to grow up a lot throughout the year. Rich Rodriguez's teams are fast, they play hard, they have all kinds of different abilities with running the ball that maybe most other teams may not have. Rich Rodriguez is a great coach, we all know that. We'll have to see what they turn into, but what they are in week 1, they're going to be dramatically different, I think, in weeks 8, 9, and 10. Now, for me, my worry is WVU just, again, doesn't have the time to get things put together the right way, doesn't have the time to get things together the way Coach Rodriguez wants. So I would say, your happiness in anything in life, not just football, it all depends on your expectations, right? We've all heard that for days before. Your happiness is based on your expectations of something. I think as a WVU fan, you may want to set your expectations accordingly for what WVU can be. We all want the Mountaineers to be great, right? I don't think it's going to happen year 1. I think expectations of a bowl game should be realistic. I think 6-6 should be honestly seen as a really strong year. Anything above that, 7-5, 8-4, 9-3, ride the gravy train, baby. But you got to get there. And I think 6-6 should be the goal this year. In my mind, I don't think WVU gets there. I think the Mountaineers have not had the time to gel. I don't think they have the roster, the skill set all set up and ready to go in place. I think losing guys like Jamori Robinson, who is still out right now pending eligibility with the NCAA, he's not going to play this week. WVU's lawyers are still working out to try to find a way to get him on the field here. Jamori Robinson's not going to play. That's a big defensive loss. A guy like Jeff Weimer, he's just coming in this week. He's just started practicing. A guy like Justin Harrington and the defense. These are guys who have just had this court order allowing them to play now, but this came over the past week. There just isn't a lot of time to put things together. You're relying on a team with 79 new players to come in, be good now, put it together now ahead of some really big games coming up. I don't see that happening this quickly. We'll see if I'm proven wrong, of course. This is the fun of the opinion part of it.
Yes.
I think WVU misses a bowl game. And I think a lot of what it comes down to is this conference schedule. If you can go 2-1 early, great. If you win the Ohio games, the Robert Morris game, you lose to Pitt, you're 2-1, it's a good start. But the Big 12 schedule concerns me because you play a lot of good teams. Arizona State, TCU, BYU, Utah, Texas Tech. Those are 5 of the best teams in the conference. You get all 5 of those. And really the only big team they miss there is Kansas State. Some reward, you get Arizona State on the road instead, and then the 5 Big 12 away games. You don't get 5 games at home. That'll come next year.
Yep.
So they're going to go at Kansas, at BYU, at Houston, which we all remember that Houston game and that Neil Brown year that could have been a lot more. That Houston Hail Mary is not fun to think about. You're going to go back there. You're going to go at Arizona State. Not easy games. And it's good to have the hard teams at home, like Cam mentioned. You get Utah at home, you get TCU at home. But it's also going to be pretty demoralizing if they show up and beat you here in Morgantown. So you know what, WVU, we'll see what they can do. But all those teams they play last year were very good. And so you're playing against one of the toughest Big 12 schedules. I think they go 5-7, Cam.
Look, I think 5-7, between 5 and 7 wins, I think is something that we could see. Not obviously, you said 5-7. I'm just saying kind of like 5 to 7 wins.
Right.
I could see them in that kind of range. I'm just going to say this right now, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit. I think West Virginia is right now playing not a 1-game season, but that backyard brawl game will have a lot to say about where West Virginia finishes. If they win that game, confidence through the roof. They might even
Yes.
go out and win 7 games. If they lose, well, this could be a program that, like Atticus kind of mentioned, 4 or 5 wins is something that could be possible. I think this game, so much riding on it, so much pressure, whether externally, internally about this game from the past. This is the game. If I polled a bunch of fans in West Virginia and I said, would you rather beat Pitt or get a bowl game? I'm going to go out on a limb and say a lot of fans would rather beat Pitt than confirm they would go to a bowl game. I think this Pitt game is going to tell the whole story of the season, whether they have confidence, whether they're ready or not.
Yeah, that's very fair. I don't know of any fans who would say bowl game over Pitt. I'll give you that one at all.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens this week. Again, this is the discovery week, if you will, for WVU. We're about to find out a lot about this team come Saturday night. We'll have Cam Murray and Zach Anderson there at the stadium. They'll be getting us highlights from the game. They'll bring you more coverage after the game. We'll have another show that we'll publish that night as well on our 5 Sports show, reacting to this game. We think it'll be a win, but who knows? We're about to find out. And we're about to see what this team really can do finally as we get to this last week here of August in Milan Puskar Stadium. Now, it's not only WVU that we're looking at today. We're also looking at our high school football teams. And our high school football season, Cam, just about ready to begin. Those games start tomorrow, Thursday. We've got 2 big ones to kick us off. Lewis County at Robert C. Byrd, Parkersburg at Morgantown. Let's take a look on the screen here. We'll give you a look of all the games we've got, our schedule and scores as we head into this week 1. Cam, what stands out to you from these first games? What are you looking at as you look at the first slate of games we've got on the schedule here?
First thing I look at, Bridgeport and Buchanan Upshur. Kind of just a season story about Bridgeport. The main question, what team in the state, or what team in general, they're playing teams out from out of state, what team is going to hand Bridgeport their first loss since 2023? That's my big question going into the season. How are they gonna deal with, playing a few good teams out of state? One team from Cumberland that won the 1A Maryland State Championship, last season. But I just feel like this is a season that we're gonna see. I believe Morgantown will have a great year. They were 8-4 last year. First round playoff win. I don't see them slowing down. I think they have a great chance of proving why they are still one of the most dominant teams in Quad A. Of course, Huntington's still out there, Spring Mills, Martinsburg, we know. But I believe that Morgantown has a pretty good quarterback coming up in Maddox Twig. I think they're going to do really well. And I know you said pick one, but I'm going to have to.
There are lots.
There are so many.
I'll take some as well.
Yeah.
The Cole Bowl to me stands out. Philip Barber at Grafton.
Yep.
We know Philip Barber's good. Can they continue to be that same level of great that they've been over the past few years? They've had a really successful past few years of the Colts. Can they get on the right track beating the Grafton Bearcats in week 1? Grafton's got a score to settle, and frankly, Grafton looks better this year than they have in the past couple years. I think this could be a very interesting game. Now, of course, we've said that a lot about Grafton. They're finally about to turn the corner, finally about to come back, finally about to win that Cole Bowl. Hasn't happened in a little while, so they'll be looking for a chance to kind of turn that around and get things back on track. That'll be a very big game. But I think the 2 biggest games on that list honestly come on the Thursday. They honestly come tomorrow. Robert C. Byrd taking on Lewis County at home. Those 2 teams have a lot of upside to them and potentially a lot of in between. We don't really know how they're going to go, how they're going to gel or mesh quickly. So I'm excited to see what those 2 can do, the Minutemen and the Eagles together. And then Morgantown, like you mentioned, Cam. Morgantown, big team, looking for a big season. Parkersburg is a tough game week 1. That is no pushover.
Oh, no. But I will say, and there's so much to talk about. Obviously, we just had a preview show was on air last night. If you're watching this or listening to this, I guess, on Spotify. We had a whole preview show, but there's still so much to talk about when it comes to Morgantown. Let's just start there. A.J. Thomas last season, 20 touchdowns. Talking to Coach Beiser, he's not looking to replace that guy with one player. He's looking at his whole running back room, what the production they can provide for this team to help them win. Let's also go along the side of RCB and Lewis County. Both playoff teams last season did lose in the first round, but a lot of players from RC Byrd very well. Isaiah Heflin, Braden Hendricks, Quentin Hilliard, Liberty guys that come in and they're joining. And from what when I talked to Coach Scott, talked to those players, they're excited. They do still have, when I talk to Heflin and some other Liberty players, they still keep that same, Liberty Mountaineer pride. They want to win a state championship. They want to prove they're still great players and a great team for Robert C. Byrd. So, like you said in our last episode, Robert C. Byrd is one of the most interesting teams in our local area. What can they do with these new players?
Yeah.
How can they mesh? And then I just also want to talk about Elkins and Lincoln. We didn't have a chance to really talk about them when they were on the screen, but talking with Coach Hawkins, the running defense was something he really wanted to focus on this offseason, and if there's a team to test that run defense against, it's going to be the Elkins Tigers. They have 3 running backs who are very good. If you watched Zach's preview, they believe their running attack is the strength of their team. So a team with a great running attack versus a team that was working to improve their rush defense. I don't know what this game's going to look like, but I'm very excited to see it. Guys, we'll all be on Friday night.
I'll tell you what, I know what I'm going to see because I watched Jaden Hatfield play at South Harrison last year. He's now at Elkins. That guy is unbelievable. He is such a good running back, so explosive around the edge.
Yes.
Elkins really has a chance to have 3,000-yard rushers. They may not be hitting the Bridgeport level of yards. They may not get that, what Bridgeport may do with their wing T with that kind of offense. But Elkins may be right up there, right behind them. Elkins has a real shot on offense to put together something special. That is a team I would not want to see handing the ball off 50 times a game because they could and they will.
They will.
And that could be so demoralizing if they're just ramming into you over and over. That is a team, the Tigers, who I think really could turn it around. And not necessarily, they made the playoffs last year. They had a really good season. But they could really take it to that next step and next level.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at our second page of games here. As you look on your screen here, if you're watching us on video, if you're listening to us, we'll take you through the big ones that we see on here. Tyler Consolidated, Ritchie County could be a big one for the Rebels. They've got a strong senior leader at quarterback, Maddox Shriver. We'll see what the Rebels can do in week 1 as they host Tyler Consolidated. Cam, standing out for me as well, Gilmer County. So Glenville State, they play their games usually at Glenville State's football field.
Yep.
Gilmer County is going to be playing there, even though Glenville is not playing their home games there this season. That'll be interesting.
That will. And I think what we heard from Zach a little bit, he went to Gilmer County, he's talking about, he believes Gilmer County will have a great year improving. And along that same line, I want to just talk about another team that could really improve this season, and that's Preston. Preston taking on Hampshire. Last year was a very close game. Hampshire got the better of Preston in that one. But when you have a guy like Slayton Manko going into his senior year as quarterback, a lot of the offensive line returning, head coach Mark Deep really believes his team could take a next step. It's going to come down to how well they can, defend the pass. They had a problem with that in a lot of their games, playing pass defense. They have a pretty good guys in the linebacker position and up front. But can Preston show people in Quad A why they're one of the best teams? And I think Preston's going to have a great year this year, and it's going to really fall at the hands of the quarterback Slayton Manko.
And some of the other games on your screen here, some of the away games we may not be able to get to for our 5th quarter highlight show. Tucker County, Pocahontas County, a bit too far for us to get the highlights that night, but Pocahontas County, we'll see if they can put up any resistance against the Tucker County machine. Are the Mountain Lions looking at another undefeated or one-loss regular season? We'll see if they can start things off right there. University, big first game for them at Musselman. Musselman's a bit of back and forth, good, bad. It kind of depends on the year. But University, that's a tough road trip, your first game, and a good test for University week 1 as they look to establish themselves here to start this year off right. Dodgers County at Liberty Raleigh as well. Maybe expecting a bit of a win there. We'll see what the Bulldogs can do. Plenty of great games here on the slate. We're going to have all the highlights on the 5th quarter, 11:09 this Friday night, August 29th, me. Cannot wait. We're going to have me and Cam Murray and Zach Anderson there breaking down the highlights of each of those games for you for week 1. And then as we go forward, what you can expect from us, every Monday we're going to have our show breaking down the top, obviously the WVU game, what happened over the weekend, and our high school football teams. Yes. Going in depth, what happened in each of these games, what did we see, what are we looking for going forward, and as we get into the meat of this season here for North Central West Virginia, we've mentioned this in our last show and beyond if you've been listening to our previews. We think there are a lot of good teams, Cam, in North Central West Virginia. I think there are a lot of teams that are going to make the playoffs and a lot of teams with a real shot to do something special.
I agree.
Who do you look at on that list?
The first team that comes to mind, a team that I really believe that can have another great season, is the Philip Barber Colts. Back-to-back seasons with first-round playoff wins under head coach Nick Maley. I think this team, although they might not have the same amount of skill players they did in years past, when I talk to a lot of the players and people in the program over at Philip Barber, they have a standard of success. A lot of teams are trying to build that, and it seems like Philip Barber is really showing they are a strong program in AA. And you know what? I don't like. Sometimes I go on, different websites have different polls coming out, whether it's polls from the southern part of West Virginia, northern part, anywhere. I like to just kind of see where Philip Barber's at. And a lot of these polls might not have gone to a Philip Barber practice recently. They have him kind of low in top 10, top 15. I think Philip Barber, what tells me that Philip Barber is going to fall off this season? I think they're going to only improve and get much better. One team I kind of want to talk about, we kind of mentioned it a little bit, is Tucker County. when you have a season where you pretty much blow out teams consistently every week and you go into the playoffs and then the tables turn on you, you face a top team in single A and then you lose, can Tucker County get over that hump? And for someone that obviously we've covered these teams, there's not a school in our local area that I believe has had so many chances to take home a state championship than Tucker County. You can talk about basketball. You can talk about how they had in football.
Yeah.
This is a team that fans in that county are desperate to see this team hoist a trophy. And, Zach was he went out to Tucker County this year, was telling me a little bit about what he saw in practice. Of course, this is a team I really feel like if they want to show the rest of the state they're a good program, they're going to go out here and they're going to prove it each and every week that they are still the team to beat. And when it comes to playoff time, the semifinals, they're going to be a team that you don't want to face. A lot of teams have come to Tucker County, have come to Parsons,
That's true,
and beat them. So can Tucker County defend their home turf in a semifinal and get to the state championship? I'd love to see it. I would.
I made one trip to Parsons in my time here in north central West Virginia. It was freezing, it was ice cold, and Tucker County scored something like 65 points a couple years ago. I do not ever want to go back there again. The drive is forever long, but if I'm an opposing team or opposing player, that is a scary trip. It's a long trip up there. Tucker County has a serious home field advantage. Great team of the Mountain Lions. But we've left our biggest game for last, what we think is the game of week 1. And Cam, East Fairmont, North Marion. East Fairmont traveling to North Marion. They'll play the Huskies. North Marion looking to get this year off on a great start for them. And I think North Marion, you've done our preview on them for WDTV. They've got 2 great quarterbacks. They've got plenty of great players on offense and defense. Huskies thinking this might be a chance for them to return deep into that championship game in Class AAA.
Yeah, that's what everyone I talk to, Coach Hayes, the players, they believe this is a team that can get to that state championship. And let's go about this matchup. Let's talk about East Fairmont and North Marion. Last year, East Fairmont was up 14-0 over North Marion at East West Stadium. I was at that game. North Marion fumbled the ball. I think they had 1 or 2 fumbles in the first half. Their first 2 possessions were actually fumbles. East Fairmont took advantage of that, and they went in that locker room. When I talked to Coach Hayes and talked to some players about that game, they were kind of talking about how they let the emotions, they let that rivalry kind of get the best of them in the first half, and they played some great football in the second half. North Marion ended up winning 28-21, and this is the North Marion team that they kind of talked about how they didn't start so good last year. They had a slow start. But when you're facing one of your county rivals, talking with both programs, talking with East Fairmont players and North Marion players, of course, this is a matchup that both programs want to win. It's going to come down to, I don't want to be so simple and obvious, but the team that makes the least amount of mistakes. You have 2 quarterbacks in North Marion who obviously have been in that role last season. We saw what it was like for them. Can they take care of the ball early? Can this team put pressure on East Fairmont? Can they make East Fairmont want to play their brand of football? A lot of teams, they do kind of, when North Marion, they're one of the most dominant teams in our area, so their style of ball, makes other teams kind of play to them. Can they make East Fairmont play their kind of football? Or is East Fairmont going to come in here and say, hey, we know how to beat you? Punch the ball out, try to just cause havoc. That's how they tried to win last year. And I think both programs are confident they can get wins, but, there's one team, North Marion, that has these state championship hopes, and they have these, they believe this is a team that can get there. So if they want to prove that, well, they're hosting East Fairmont, so what better way to, show the state, show your county rival that you're trying to get back to that position.
North Marion, a tough, very tough place to play, traveling out there. So we'll see what happens in week 1. That's going to be our game of the week. We're going to be live there for our 5th quarter pregame show on Friday night during the 6 o'clock newscast. That'll be about 6:15 p.m. We'll be there from the stadium. Plus, of course, we'll have plenty of highlights from that game and beyond. And North Marion's got the best hot chocolate in the area, too. I know that's my experience there. Won't be getting that in September, but that's okay. We'll see what they can do in week 1. We're so excited to bring you highlights from 5th quarter, from all of these games that we have around here. The 5th quarter, again, our first show, our first episode of this season 38 for us here at WDTV. That is going to be Friday night, August 29th, 11:09 p.m. We can't wait to have you join us on WDTV, and we'll, of course, be posting the whole show online after the game, and then, of course, we'll bring you all the breakdown. Saturday night of WVU football. Monday, we'll have the breakdown of both games. the WVU team, and all of our high school games. Cam, I can't wait for week 1. This is going to be awesome.
Neither can I. Neither can I. I mean, oh man, I'm so excited, really. Like
yes.
I came into this show today, and just was like, man, it's really just one more sleep until high school football. I don't want to get too personal, but anchoring, being a weekend anchor in the summer, that's all because I'm itching to get over there on that sports desk and break down these games. There's nothing we both really enjoy doing at this station in general than talking some highlights, talking some football, and watching these young student athletes just have a great time on Friday nights. It's what it's all about, and yeah. Cannot wait to bring it to you guys.
That it is. Thank you all for joining us here tonight. We hope you've enjoyed this 5th quarter show here this evening, this 5 sports show, excuse me. I'm too excited about the 5th quarter, Cam. Here we go. We just can't wait for high school football. That's all we're looking to do here. Have fun, everyone. Thursday and Friday nights, if you go to your high school football games, we'll see you again at 11:09 on Friday night for the 5th quarter, season 38. And we'll see you next on the 5 sports show Saturday night after WVU. Robert Morris, we'll see you then. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.